All right, guys, so thanks for joining in. Today I want to talk a little bit about how to present offers and properties to your clients. You know, one of the things that a lot of new agents forget is that, the value that they bring to the client is what is important. They're not there to just search for properties or give properties or put them out there, but rather help analyze those properties and get them to a client. So what I mean by that is some agents will just download every single property that may somewhat fit the criteria, send it to their clients, and let the clients decide if they like any of them. This can be overwhelming for a client, and many times there can be hundreds of properties, especially if it's an investment going around like single tenant net lease around the country. So in this day and age, in the old days, that kind of was important because there was no centralized database or databases that you could go and search properties for. So you would have to make calls and do a survey and then put it out. It could take upwards of a week to do that, and then you would let the clients know, here's what's currently available and here's why it would fit your needs of what you're looking for, whether it's a tenant or an investor looking for properties. Now in this day and age, however, any tenant, any investor can search 90% of those properties pretty easily on the open databases, whether it's LoopNet, Crexi, whatever database that they may be able to use that's free to them. They can actually get out there and search. So instead, what you have to do nowadays is, as a real estate agent and a commercial real estate agent, you have to actually stand above that chaff, separate yourself from the chaff of all those properties. So the best way to do that is when you are doing the survey, take the time. It's not time sensitive in the sense that I have to get this out in 15, 20, 30 minutes from when the person called, because that doesn't really give you any time to actually analyze the data and the properties. Instead, let your clients know, set it up front ahead of time that, we're going to pull the properties, we're going to do a survey, we're going to review them, and we'll get it to you by end of the day or by the next day at the latest. And at that time, now you can then start looking at every single one of these properties. Take a look. If it's a tenant that's leasing, whether the zoning is correct for it, whether traffic counts, demographics, all this data that they don't necessarily have access to from the databases, that you can now supply to them and explain why this property is better than another property they may be looking at or another property that you're showing them. Comes to investments, the same thing happens. So you want to actually maybe like for instance on a single tenant net lease property, you might want to actually abstract out the lease saying that this is a single tenant net lease property occupied by XYZ tenant. The guarantor is corporate or franchisee. If it's franchisee, it has how many units is the strength, what's the net operating income, and what's the asking rate and the cap rate at that time. But more importantly, then you can start talking about other traffic generators in the area, talk about the traffic counts in the area, whether it's a hard corner, soft corner, mid-block. What is the appeal for this particular location and why? So, and then also the tenant itself and the lease structure. How often are the increases? What do they look like? So this way it gives them a brief synopsis as opposed to them looking through 24, 25 pages of an offering memorandum and trying to determine that information for themselves. So you're actually now adding value to them. You're helping them out, going a lot quicker. You're picking out properties that are specifically to their investment goals. So this is a key to actually do more business, because research has shown, psychologically speaking, people, when given a lot of choices, tend to shut down and not make a decision or not make a purchase. So instead, show them the best opportunities that are out there for them and take out the ones that don't fit their criteria, and then that way there's a much higher likelihood that they will make the decision to move forward, whether it's the leasing or the sales side. Now, when it comes to offers, typically speaking, most commercial real estate, we submit offers on what we call a letter of intent. And so for a letter of intent, one of the things and one of the key things that I've always noticed, and be aware of who you're working with. So if you're supplying and you're putting that letter of intent together, review it, look for typos, look for grammar issues, Look for things that don't make sense, and also make sure that everything that you and your client may want, whether it's a purchase or a lease, is included in that LOI, so you don't have to come back and renegotiate something. So you want to review it, review. I suggest even having somebody else, if you have someone on your team or if you have a team, to look at it themselves, because I know for a fact that I've looked at documents before in the past and I've reread them 2-3 times, and sometimes when you're the one typing it up or doing it, you just miss those typos, you miss those things. So you want to make sure that you type it up, review it. If you have someone else that can help review it, have them review it, make sure that they understand it, make sure that the broker's information is correct, that their names are correct, the emails are correct, phone numbers are correct, address is correct. Everything should be correct in that LOI, because ultimately, and here's the reason why, you know, when you're going up against other agents, other brokers, you know, as a listing agent, I know that I want to work with someone that has their everything together, you know, that is on top of the ball. And frankly, typos, grammar errors, things like that are red flags for me. It tells me that the agent's going too fast, they're not paying that much attention, and this is what I can expect during the escrow process as well. So instead, I want to make sure that everything is perfectly done and done well. And in addition to that, when you are submitting an offer, I always submit a little brief synopsis of who the tenant is and or buyer is, so that when I'm going in and submitting it, I will give a little portfolio and say something along the lines of, this is, you know, for instance, and if one of my clients we just submitted an offer to, we said, this is one of my best clients, I've closed 9 deals with her in the last 2 years. Her portfolio includes XYZ properties around the country or wherever it might be. And then she's looking for this property, and here's why, whether it's a 1031 exchange and whatnot. And then in addition to that, take the additional step and see, if you were the listing agent, what would you want to see with that offer, such as proof of funds. Get it to them, send it to them. If they have an attorney lined up, say that we have an attorney lined up ready to review the documents, ready to go move forward, here's their contact information. Get it all done up front so that they know that everything, you're ready to move forward if they decide to accept your offer, and that it's going to be as smooth of a transaction as possible, because you're on top of it. When you're not, and you see errors and you see typos and you see things that don't make sense, or you see things that shouldn't belong because you're writing an offer on one type of property, but you know it doesn't really apply to it, so you take that language out. If you see those kind of things, as a listing agent, I don't want to work with that person. I prefer not to if my choices were up there. So you want to give yourself as much of an advantage as possible by making sure all your ducks are in a row, and that when you submit the offer, that it is the best offer that's going out there. It's professional, and that's what you want to convey to the other party and the other side, that they're going to be working with a professional, and that it's going to be a relatively smooth transaction. Okay, any questions? All right, so I think if you follow those, then you know, ultimately it will help get you more deals, and you'll give better service to your client as well. All right, so that's it. So, all right, finished now, done, blah, blah, blah. All right, Sammy knows where it's at. Okay, shut, turn off, done. All right, so the reason why I'm saying this, we've had some feedback and some other things, and some other clients that have come out, and you'd be surprised that, you know, we've had feedback recently, and I've seen some LOIs recently also from other parties that just aren't up to par. And the reason why I say that is, and just to give you an example of why, Young recently reached out to a broker for off-market deals, and it's a broker I knew, and a broker I actually happened to be working with on another deal, trying to put one together. Okay, so we're sitting there and we're talking, and Young reached out and he gave him like 3 off-market 7-Elevens that aren't on the market yet, but coming up within the next 2 weeks, which is what our client was looking for. And when he did that, he gave them, said it was new construction, new construction, rental rates this, increases this, right? That's all we gave him. Young, going a little too fast, responded with, and then he gave him he said it was brand new construction, all three were brand new construction, here's the rental rate, here's the increases, and here's the expected cap rate of the seller, right? That's what he gave us. Young came back and said, moving a little too fast, asked some questions such as, can you give me the lease terms? Length of lease, things like that. One. Number two, he asked sales price, what asking price? This guy actually called me and said, hey, I don't know how big your firm is or not, but do you know this young guy? Do you work with him? As a matter of fact, I do. I work very closely with him. He's a junior agent. He actually works with me on my team with some other stuff. He goes, well, I sent him some properties and he had these questions that really made no sense, and I didn't know if I wanted to send him any of the information. I said, and I came back with, no, he works with me. I know he has a lot on his plate. He's just going a little fast. He goes, okay, I'll send him the info. Now, if you have expected cap rate and you have the current rent, you can figure out what the asking rate is, okay? Yeah. But now, by going back and asking a broker that, you're telling them, I don't understand cap rates, I don't understand this. So he's like, what the fuck, why do I want to work with this guy? He doesn't know anything, okay? Number one. Number two is when he came back and asked, what are the lease terms? The giveaway was, it's all new construction. 7-Eleven only does a certain, 7-Eleven only does certain types of leases. 15-year terms for brand new construction. They'll do 10-year terms for like inline existing stuff, but if it's brand new ground up construction, it's a 15-year term with increases and 4 or 5-year options. That's just the way they structure their leases on all new construction. The fact that he came back and asked him that, again, showed him that he doesn't know what he's talking about, or didn't know, or was going too fast. So at that point, this broker was like, I don't want to work with this guy.
Yeah.
And he would have potentially burned some bridges with him down the road, because guess what? He's not going to see those off-market deals. And in the future, he's not going to get the off-market deals. Yeah. So when I say that this is important, it really is, guys. I mean, you have to proof everything and make sure it is correct and right. And don't count me to catch it, because I've told you guys this before. I will look at a LOI, but I'm not a proofreader. I'm not going to proofread your LOI for you. I mean, I have, and I do if I have it and I have the time, but you can't trust that I'm going to do that every time, because I'm going through very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Nor do I understand all the deal points, so I don't know if you've missed something or not. This is why you have to review it, double check it, make sure it's in there, typed up correctly, but more importantly than just typed up correctly and grammatically correct, and spelling is correct, but also, does it make sense? Are you asking something that's like, it's an all cash deal and then you put in an appraisal contingency, or you put in something that doesn't make sense? Make sure all the terms make sense as they work together among everything.